The millionaire escapes a deadly poison plot. Shocking warning from a stranger. James Bennett stood by the massive window of the penthouse, the New York skyline glittering like a field of diamonds beneath the cold autumn night. Inside, the air buzzed with high society chatter, clinking glasses, and forced laughter. Velvet dresses swirled, tuxedos tightened, but James felt the chill deep in his bones, a warning, sharp and sudden. He raised his glass of rare, smoky scotch to his lips, savoring the burn, the way it settled deep in his chest. Then, out of nowhere, a wave of dizziness hit. His head spun, vision blurring against the backdrop of crystal chandeliers and shimmering gowns. Sweat broke across his forehead, like icy droplets falling inside a furnace. He staggered, gripping the bar for balance. Before darkness could swallow him whole, a hand grabbed his arm, a frantic grip, trembling with urgency. "Listen," a voice hissed. Low and jagged. "You're being poisoned." Close to home. Deadly. James blinked, heart hammering against his ribs. The stranger's eyes flickered with panic. Too wild to be lying. Too desperate. "Who are you?" James gasped, voice cracking. But the man only pressed a folded note into his palm, then vanished into the crowd like smoke. Around him, the gala's glittering surface remained, but a cold ripple of fear sliced through the warmth. Guests continued their conversations, unaware. Some even smiled too wide, unaware of the shadows melting into darkness, their eyes watching James just a little too closely. James fought the poison's creeping numbness, every second a battle. His mind raced. Who wanted him dead? Old enemies? Rival tycoons? Or maybe someone from the circle he trusted, the very people he once called friends. A heavy weight settled in his chest, a mixture of betrayal and terror. The penthouse suddenly felt like a cage lined with vipers, each shadow hiding a secret. His hand trembled as he unfolded the note. Inside, a cryptic message. "Look behind your own walls. The real danger wears your face." His breath hitched, cold sweat slicking his palms. Family secrets? The words clawed their way into his thoughts, upending everything he had believed about his past. James's eyes darted around the room, and then he saw it. A shadowy figure, standing just beyond the crowd's glow, watching him like a predator waiting to strike. A faint smile curled on the figure's lips, but in that smile was something darker, unreadable. Ally or enemy? James had no way to tell. His world twisted into a maze of lies, poison, and danger. The fight to survive and to protect everything he'd built was only beginning. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, Leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James's eyes locked on the shadowy figure just on the edge of the crowd, still watching. The room spun around him, the poison clawing deeper, squeezing his throat. His fingers curled tightly around the note, words burning like ice on his skin. Who are you? He tried again. Behind James, the buzz of the party blurred into silence. Then, loud, piercing, the sound of glass shattering. Heads whipped toward the source, eyes wide, breaths caught in throats. A scream. It came from the other side of the room. Time slowed. James stumbled forward, nausea washing over him as heavier and heavier waves threatened to pull him under. He moved, lurching towards the chaos. There, on the marble floor, lay Caroline, his sister. Her face was pale, eyes wide, glass shards glittering where her hand had been. "Call 911, someone, please," a woman shouted. James dropped to his knees beside her, heart slamming as he reached out. Caroline was shaking, convulsing. Her body twisted like it wanted to escape some deadly grasp no one else saw. Her lips parted, and then she whispered, barely audible, "James, don't trust anyone." The words froze him. He squeezed her hand, panic flooding every fiber. How was she mixed in with this? This wasn't random. They were both targeted. But why? Suddenly, James's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out, an unknown number flashing. He answered on instinct. A voice, cold and clipped, filled the line. "James Bennett, listen carefully. You don't know the truth about Caroline. She's tangled deeper in this than you can imagine." James's breath hitched. "What do you mean? She's my sister." The voice laughed, a bitter, hard sound. "Blood isn't always the bond you think it is. The real poison runs deeper. You built your empire on lies, and she helped bury them." The line went dead. James stared at his phone, numb. The crowd pressed closer now, whispers swirling. Is it her? But she was so sweet. How could she? Caroline's eyes flickered open. She looked at James, raw fear breaking through the fog. "James, I'm sorry. Everything you believe, it's wrong. I never wanted this, but I couldn't stop it." His chest tightened like a fist. Who's behind this? Tell me now." Her gaze hardened. "It's you." The floor seemed to drop beneath James. "Me? What are you?" Caroline coughed, voice cracking. "You don't remember, do you, the real reason someone wants to kill you both? The truth your mind buried deep. We both lost ourselves in the game, but you're the one who crossed the line." Tears welled up in James's eyes, burning hot, blurring the crowd into fading shadows. A sick, terrible thought crashed through him. Had the poison been meant to wake him up? To reveal the nightmare hiding in plain sight? He looked up to find the shadowy figure now stepping forward, face illuminated in the harsh light. It was Caroline's husband, the man James had trusted for years. A twisted smile cracked his face. "You're finally seeing clearly," the man said, voice low, venomous. "Welcome to the real secret, James. You're not the victim here. You're the key. And maybe the villain." The room tilted, colors bleeding. Betrayal clawed at James's throat. What dark truth had he forgotten? How deep did the poison run? In blood, in lies, in love? And if Caroline was confessing, who else was hiding behind the masks? The mansion's grand windows reflected the New York skyline, cold and distant. James was alone, drowning in a sea of secrets he never wanted to face. And somewhere, deep inside, a new question burned hotter than fear or pain. Could he trust himself? James's eyes locked on the shadowy figure, Caroline's husband, his face sharp and cold under the harsh light. The venom in his voice sliced through the noise. "You're not the victim here. You're the key. And maybe the villain." James's breath caught, his heart hammered with confusion and dread. But then, suddenly, the room shifted. A sharp sound, click, came from behind him. All heads spun. A soft snap echoed. Then a wave of dizziness swept James again. He blinked hard and realized the poison wasn't wearing off. If anything, it was getting worse. His mouth went dry. His knees shook. Behind the crowd, a figure stepped forward. A tall man, calm and steady. Everyone's breath hitched. It was the stranger who had warned him. Only now, he wasn't a stranger anymore. His glasses caught the light as he pulled off a mask, revealing a face James knew too well. His own face. A double. James staggered back, his gaze locked on the man, himself, but with eyes colder, emptier, hard and unrecognizable. "Welcome, James," the double said, voice eerily calm, "to the truth you buried deep inside." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murmurs turned into whispers. "Is that him? Impossible." James shook his head, trying to make sense. "What is this? Some sick joke?" His voice cracked with fear. The second James stepped forward, eyes glittering with a terrifying intelligence that James didn't recognize in himself. The room froze. "I'm the one who's been watching, the one who built the empire from the shadows, the one poisoning the past to rewrite the future." James's chest tightened like iron. His fingers clenched into fists. "No, this can't be!" The double smiled, a twisted grin that didn't reach the eyes. "You think you remember everything, but every step, every betrayal, every secret you blamed on others, I lived it. I am the shadow inside you." Behind them, people started to step back, fear blossoming like wildfire. Caroline's body trembled on the floor, eyes wide, frozen somewhere between shock and horror. James wanted to scream, to believe this was a nightmare, but his legs and mind refused to obey. The double's voice echoed, clear and cold. "I am the real James Bennett, the one who chose the poison, the one who has been playing both sides, keeping score in blood. The room tilted. James's breath caught. A sudden, crushing weight pressed down on his chest. "Why?" he whispered, voice breaking. "Why do this? Why live as a shadow?" The double stepped closer. "Because the truth is too dangerous to see. The man you called you was a lie crafted to protect everyone else, to hide what you lost, to hide what I did." Suddenly, the party's grand doors burst open. Police flooded in, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. A cold voice cut through the chaos. "James Bennett, you're under arrest." Shock froze the room. James looked from the double to the officers, then back to Caroline, trembling on the ground. The words hit him like a hard punch. The poison, the lies, the deadly plot. It wasn't just around him. It was inside. The man he thought he was gone. And now, the fight was to prove which James Bennett was the truth, or if either of them was left at all. The room spun. The night cracked open, and James, real James or copy, had to face the darkest question yet. Who was the real villain? And who was the real victim? James's breath hitched as officers moved in, hands raised. The room tightened, breaths held, eyes flicking between two impossibly identical men, one trembling, the other cold, unbeaten. The tension strangled the air, thick and suffocating. James could barely stand. His knees wobbled like fragile twigs in a storm. Then, from behind him, clear and sharp, came a sudden crack. Everyone froze. Glass shattered again. But this time, it wasn't a scream. It was a deafening silence that followed. A figure stumbled forward from the back of the room, clutching a phone, pale as death. It was Caroline. Her voice cracked like dry wood. "Wait! Don't!" She collapsed. Heart pounding, James dropped to her side, hands shaking, desperate. The crowd parted like waves. Panic blooming thick. The paramedics arrived fast, but Caroline's eyes locked on James. "No!" she whispered, voice thin. Suddenly, all eyes snapped back to him. The double shifted, expression tightening. "Enough games," he hissed. "You don't know the half of it." Then, the police chief stepped forward, face grim. He held up a tablet. The screen lit up the room, security footage from inside the penthouse. Everyone gasped. James's heart slammed against his ribs. On the screen, there was him. Or the man everyone called James Bennett, standing at the bar, alone, pouring a vial into his glass, then drinking it. But seconds later, he collapsed, face twisting in pain. Except the James on the floor wasn't real. It was a body double, marked, lifeless, frozen, blood pooling beneath, quiet and accusing. The real shock slashed through the room like a knife. The man everyone thought was James Bennett, dead. That's why the double had been so cold, so sure, because he was playing a part, a calculated mask, The man sitting weak, clutching Caroline's hand, was the real James? And he'd been set up as a decoy. Whispers rippled like wildfire. He's been framed. It was a setup all along. But who wants him dead? James's mind raced through the chaos like a wild horse. Caroline's eyes fluttered open, voice trembling. "It's worse," she said. "The poison. It's not just poison. It's programmed. It's designed to make you sick, to make you forget who you are." Her gaze locked on James, intense and full of hurt. "They erased parts of your memory, stitched lies into your past. You're the target because you uncovered something they buried deep." James's chest crushed under the weight. He looked back at the screen, the double's grotesque smile frozen in death. Then, in that moment, the doors banged open again. A second police squad rushed in. But this time, they weren't alone. A woman stepped through the crowd, tall, commanding, draped in shadow like a storm cloud. She pulled off a hood, revealing her face. James's breath hitched cold. It was the woman from the party, the one nobody really noticed, the one standing near the bar all night, the one who whispered from the darkness before the warning, the woman who inexplicably was an exact third copy of James. 3 versions, 2 dead, 1 dying. She smiled, but it wasn't a smile. It was a warning, a threat carved in ice. "I'm the original," she said, voice sharp and low. "The one who started it all." Eyes widened. The room shrank. James's head felt like it would split open. "Your memories, your empire, it's all a lie." She stepped closer, the crowd parting like the sea. "And the real poison?" She gestured to Caroline, crumpled on the floor. "It was meant for me, not you." A gasp exploded through the room. James's hands clenched, the note still pressed in his pocket. "Look behind your own walls." The woman's dark eyes glittered. "Who built this maze? Who killed the man you thought you were? And who decided which James Bennett could survive?" The night shattered. The truth was no longer just hidden in shadows. It was fractured, in pieces, in lies, and it was moving. James stared, breath shallow, heart wild. The game wasn't just about trust or poison. It was about identity. And now, which one was him? Which one was the enemy? And which one would live to tell the story? James stood frozen as the woman, this third copy of himself, stepped closer, the crowd parting like slow waves around her. Her eyes burned cold, sharp as shattered glass. "I'm the original," she said again, voice steady, low. "This whole mess, it started with me." The room held its breath. James's chest squeezed tight. His head throbbed so hard, it felt like it might split open. Everything inside him screamed in confusion. Then, suddenly, the lights cut out. Blackness. A gasp ran through the crowd like a wildfire. Phones flickered on. Emergency lights blinked, and then a deafening boom rattled the penthouse. Glass exploded in a stinging rain. People screamed, stumbled, scrambled for cover. James hit the floor hard, chest burning, ears ringing like a wild storm. When the chaos calmed, the lights flickered back. But the scene was impossible. Where Caroline had been, there was nothing. No pale face, no trembling body, just an empty space, like she had vanished into thin air. Gasps and murmurs rushed through the room. James scrambled up, heart pounding. His eyes darted everywhere, desperate. Then, footsteps, slow and deliberate. From the smoke and shattered glass stepped Caroline. Only she wasn't herself. Her eyes glinted silver, unnatural, steel cold. A shadow flickered behind her smile, sharp and wild. Everyone froze. James's throat tightened. "What the hell?" he whispered. Caroline's smile curled wider, too wide. "I think it's time you knew something," she said, voice calm but robotic, like a stranger wearing her skin. Suddenly, she raised a hand, and from her palm glowed a tiny device, blinking, pulsing with eerie light. James blinked, confusion twisting sharper than the pain in his chest. "I'm not who you thought I was," she said. A crowd gasped. The police officers shifted uneasily. Then, with a quiet hiss, Caroline's hand opened. The device sparked. Suddenly, a flood of images blasted through James's mind. Not memories, code, data. Cold numbers swimming through his veins like poison. His breath hitched. The woman known as Caroline wasn't human. She was something else. A programmed ghost. A living weapon. A perfect mimic designed to infiltrate, to confuse, to destroy. Jane stumbled back, voice breaking. "No, this can't be real." But the silver-eyed Caroline smiled again, merciless. "We're all puppets, James, strings pulled by shadows deeper than you ever imagined." Her eyes locked onto his, unblinking, endless. Then came the final blow. From behind the crowd, a new voice cut through the silence, soft, amused, and very close. "Welcome to the truth, James." He whirled to see. The woman who claimed to be the original James wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man, older, grayer, his eyes shining with cold fire. His smile was cruel and satisfied. "Caroline wasn't your sister," he said. "She was the trigger. And you?" He leaned forward, voice dropping low, venomous. "You're not James Bennett. Not really." The room widened, collapsed, then tightened again. "What?" James gasped, lungs burning. The man smiled. "You're a construct, a shadow copy made to replace the real James." James stumbled. "We created you to erase the man who found out too much." The crowd stirred into chaos. Voices raised, shocked, terrified. James's head spun. If this was true, if none of this was him, the entire world collapsed like a house of cards. Who was he? Who had built him? And what terrible game was he trapped inside? Caroline, the doubles, the lies, the poison, all part of a nightmare written by hands far darker than he'd ever feared. James's breath cracked, cold sweat slicking his skin. A single question screamed inside him, louder than anything else. If he wasn't real, then who was watching? The answer was waiting, just beyond the shattered glass, and this time there was no escaping it. James stood frozen as the man leaned in, voice dripping with cold certainty. "You're not James Bennett. Not really." His chest went tight. His hands clenched the note in his pocket as the room swallowed him whole. Whispers swirling, eyes wide, a sinking pit forming deep in his gut. "We made you. A shadow, a ghost." Because the real James Bennett knew too much. He had to vanish. The words hit like a thunderclap. Everything, the poison, the doubles, Caroline's betrayal, was a lie wrapped in another lie. Or maybe not a lie at all. A part of him, the trembling part, begged for a way out, a crack in the nightmare. Then, a sudden, sharp intake of breath echoed from the crowd. All eyes spun toward the shattered window where the older man stood, smug and unblinking. But before anyone could react, a deep, hollow voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Every head snapped to the grand entrance just as the massive doors slammed open again. This time, a group of people flooded in. Men and women dressed not like cops, but doctors, scientists, faces tense, carrying sleek black cases. Leading them was a woman with steel-gray hair pulled tight. Her eyes pierced the room like cold lightning. She scanned James, then the others, and in a voice low and urgent said, "Step back, all of you." James barely heard the murmurs. Confusion warred with fear. "What's going on?" someone demanded. The gray-haired woman's gaze locked on James. "We're here to set it right," she said. "But first, you all need to know the truth." James's breath hitched. "What truth?" She stepped closer, every step echoing in the stunned room. "This man," she pointed at James, "is not human. Not in the way you think." Gasps rippled. Screens flickered. Phones raised instinctively. "This is Project Echo," she continued, voice steady but heavy. "A secret program headed by the government years ago, creating artificial minds from memories. Shadow replicas meant to protect secrets and watch from the shadows." James's knees shook. The crowd pulled back, murmurs turning to shocked cries. "But the real James Bennett," she said slowly. "He died 5 years ago." Silence swallowed the room whole. James's vision blurred. His heart hammered as the weight crashed over him. "You're not a victim anymore," she whispered, locking eyes with him. "You're the weapon, the last remaining echo." Before anyone could respond, the woman raised her hand. A piercing beep sounded. Suddenly, the damaged light panels in the ceiling flickered wildly. And then, with a surreal crackle, James's entire body jolted. Pain exploded behind his eyes. Memories flooded in, not his own. Faces, places, names. A scream ripped from James's throat as visions slammed through his mind. He saw himself, an imposter, a puppet, pulling strings from hidden rooms. He saw Caroline, not as sister, but as part of the experiment, programmed to keep him in line. A cold, clinical voice echoed in his head. Subject incomplete. Protocol failed. Initiate reset sequence. His body tensed. Then, in one horrifying instant, he realized he was the real James Bennett. Not a copy, but a mind trapped inside a machine, his memories stolen, replayed, and twisted. His entire life, his empire, his family. Fabricated illusions, meant to keep the truth buried. Behind the double, the woman, the poison, there was a darker cage. James collapsed, ragged and gasping. The crowd fell silent. The gray-haired woman crouched beside him, voice soft. You've been locked inside your own mind. The rest, the doubles, the poison, it's all a maze designed to keep you from waking up. Tears pricked James's eyes, not just from pain, but a sudden, fierce clarity. Who did this? The woman looked up, shadows stretching over her face. The very people you trusted most. Suddenly, phones began buzzing. The screens around lit up again. A new video played. Old footage, distorted and grainy. There was a man signing papers. Dark-eyed, cold smiling. A face James knew too well. His own. But not him. A creak, like the breaking of a chain, and a voice whispered, barely audible over the noise. Welcome back, James. Your nightmare is just starting. The room shattered into chaos. James looked up, hope and terror tangled deep inside. Because now, more than ever, he didn't know who to trust, or if he was free at all. James's breath hitched as the room erupted into chaos. Shouts bounced off the marble walls. Phones blared, flashing every angle, capturing a nightmare unraveling live. He stared at the gray-haired woman, her eyes sharp but kind. A flicker of something, hope, darted in his chest. But then, the hidden speakers crackled to life. A voice cut through the noise. Cold, mechanical, familiar. System override initiated. Gasps and whispers flipped into screams. The crowd froze. James turned sharply toward the source, a sleek black console still glowing near the shattered window. The screen flickered wildly, and then, clear as day, a live video feed of a dark, sterile lab appeared. Rows of computers and blinking machines. In the center, a figure slumped over a chair, face buried in hands. And then that figure looked up. James blinked, throat tightening. It was him, but not the James they all thought they knew. This one was pale, gaunt, eyes glazed with exhaustion and despair. And standing behind him, silent and cold, Caroline. No silver eyes now, just her, looking real, sad. She reached out, touched the chair's back. Her voice crackled through the speakers. "You don't know what you are, James, but I do." The crowd shifted uneasily. James's heart pounded so hard, his chest felt like it might burst. What is this?" he whispered, voice shaking. The screen switched abruptly to text across the bottom. "Welcome to the lab, Subject 47. Suddenly, everything twisted inside him. This wasn't the penthouse, not even New York. This was a memory, an illusion, a cage. The lights flickered again. The shattered glass shimmered strangely, as if the walls were thin, brittle. James stumbled. Faces of the crowd blurred and morphed. The gray-haired woman's kind eyes twisted into cold calculation. Behind her, the other two doubles materialized, James and Caroline, standing close, watching him carefully. His real heart thundered, blood pounding in his ears. The woman from the party, who claimed to be the original, stepped forward, calm but fierce. "I'm sorry, James," she said quietly, "because the truth is worse than you ever guessed." Before he could ask what she meant, a chilling silence swallowed the room. Then came the sharp snap of a finger. Suddenly, the ground beneath James gave way. He fell, not down, but backward, through darkness, through cold, endless black. His body dissolved. His senses screamed. A voice whispered, soft, gentle, but filled with quiet horror. "You were never alive here. This is your shell." James gasped, trying to grasp something solid. His mind screamed for meaning. Then, bright white light flooded him. His eyes shot open. He wasn't in the penthouse. He was lying on a hospital bed, alone. Machines beeped steadily. And from the corner, a man in a white coat stepped forward. Eyes piercing, tired. He said only one sentence. "We extracted the mind, the memories. You survived only as code." James's breath caught. "Code?" He shook his head, hands trembling. "No, I am here. I'm real." The doctor's face held a bitter smile. "Real? You're a ghost trapped in a machine. Your body died years ago." James's throat closed tight. A crushing pain gripped his chest. "My life, my family, the empire—" "Constructed," the doctor interrupted gently. "Fabricated experiences to keep your mind alive while we searched for the original." James's vision blurred. Then, through the haze of machines and sterile walls, the door burst open. Caroline stepped in. Not a sister, not a copy, a scientist. Her eyes tearful but resolute. "I'm sorry, James," she said, voice breaking. "We had to do this. To save you. To save us all." James's world shattered completely. "Who am I?" he whispered. Caroline reached out, touched his hand. "Not who you think. Not who anyone thinks. You are the first, the prototype. And now, the key to everything." James's heart slammed. The room spun. Was he alive, or just the echo of a man long gone? And if he was the prototype, who was really out there waiting? The nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. James lay back on the stiff hospital bed, eyes flickering up to Caroline. The weight in his chest felt endless, as if the air itself had thickened inside him. "You're the prototype, the key," she said softly, voice cracking like broken glass. Her hand trembled where it rested on his wrist. "We had no choice." He swallowed, lungs tight. "Then what am I, Caroline? What does that mean for everything?" Her eyes shimmered with a sadness so sharp it burned right through him. But before she could answer, the machines around him blinked erratically, sirens in his mind. Lights flickered. Then the door slammed open again. This time, the room filled with something colder, sterile, mechanical. Men in black suits entered, faces stone. One stepped forward, a tall man with steel gray hair, a polished voice like ice. He carried a sealed envelope. He paused, looking down at James with a chilling smile. "Mr. Barnes, or should I say, Subject 47. James flinched, heart jamming hard against his ribs. The man's smile widened. "You are a remarkable mind, but no more than a fragment." He dropped the envelope on the table with a sharp thud. James's fingers trembled as he pulled it open. Inside, photos. First, a blurry shot of a child in a small backyard, laughing. Then, more, scattered memories, but all with one face hidden, blackened out. Suddenly, a final image. James stared in frozen horror. It was a photo of himself, except the eyes weren't his. They were empty, dead. A name printed underneath, Elias Monroe. His breath caught. The man in black leaned in, voice low, cold. "Subject 47, you aren't the first." A sudden weight crashed into James's chest. "You're not James Bennett." Not Caroline's words, not the doctor's, but this man's final verdict. James's head spun, body collapsing back into the sheets. "Then, who am I?" The man's gaze didn't waver. "You're the echo of a man who never should have existed." Silence stretched, thick and unbearable. Then, the hospital lights cut sharply. An electric crack filled the air. Heartbeat pounding louder than ever, James blinked toward the window, where a sudden shadow moved. Caroline, but not as before. Her eyes now flicked black, pupils gone. Her lips curled into a grin too wide. She stepped forward, voice smooth, but dripping menace. "You don't get it yet, do you?" James tried to sit up, but couldn't. His limbs were heavy, useless. "The real game isn't survival," she whispered. "It's control." Suddenly, the screen on the wall lit up. Video flickered on. There, clear as day, a figure James didn't recognize sat in the shadows. One hand holding a flash drive, the other pressed to his temple. The man spoke calmly, almost kindly. "I'm the original James Bennett," he said. "No copies, no prototypes. But Everything you've lived, manufactured, a distraction. James's breath hitched like a broken chain. The man's eyes pierced through the screen. And now, the door behind James crashed open again. This time, it wasn't the men in black. It was the police chief, eyes wide in disbelief. "Something's wrong," he said, voice trembling. "Subject 47, you're in containment, not a hospital." James's heart hammered. He looked down at his arms. Cold metal cuffs linked to the bed. He wasn't a man. He was a prisoner. And the nightmare? Just beginning. Caroline's grin split wider as she whispered close to his ear. "You were never real. You were their experiment. And now, they want their real James back." The room plunged into silence. James's mind shattered into 1,000 pieces. Who was the real man behind the screen? And more terrifying, what part of him was left to fight? The clock ticked toward oblivion, and somewhere deep inside, James finally saw the truth. This wasn't just a fight for identity. It was a war for his very soul, and no one was coming to save him. James's breath hitched as the cuffs tightened, a cold, unyielding grip biting into his wrists. His chest heaved. The room shrank, walls pressing closer, every breath growing heavier. The man in black smiled, steady, satisfied. "You were never real, just code, an echo to bury the truth." James's mind spun, a cyclone of shattered pieces. His voice cracked, barely a whisper. "Then, what am I?" Before the man could answer, the room plunged into silence. Suddenly, the lights flickered once, twice, and then died. Darkness swallowed everything. Gasps filled the air. Phones buzzed weakly, flashlights snapping on like fireflies struggling in the night. James's heart thundered in the void. Then, a low, humming vibration filled the space, mounting quickly into a horrific roar. The black suits tensed. Officers reached for weapons. The crowd scattered, panic blooming like wildfire. Without warning, the floor beneath James cracked open, an impossibly wide fissure gouging through the sterile hospital room. He stumbled, caught between terror and shock. From the abyss, a flood of light burst up, blinding, white, pure. And from that blinding glow, a figure emerged. Tall, familiar, impossible. It was James, but not the James they'd all met. This one's skin shimmered like glass, shattered and reassembled. His eyes burned with 1,000 storms. His voice cut clear through the chaos, calm, yet trembling with rage. "I'm the original." The room froze. The man in black, mid-smile, faltered. James's heart caught in his throat. His breath hitched hard, chest tightening. But then, the other James, James in cuffs, collapsed to the floor. His body convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and from his lips, weak, trembling, came a horrifying truth. "I was never you." A desperate silence fell. Then the original James stepped forward, voice low and cutting. all of this a simulation? A lie inside a lie. You're all inside my mind. The crowd erupted, but their voices sounded like echoes down a distant tunnel. James's gaze met the dry-eyed scientist, Caroline, now stripped of her cold mimicry. She nodded slowly. Yes, the poisoning, the doubles, the betrayals. None of it was outside. It's all fragments of a fractured psyche. James's chest heaved, muscles trembling like thin ice beneath a storm. Then, who am I? He gasped. The original smiled, bitter, haunted. You are the shadow, the pain I created to keep myself sane. Pain exploded behind James's eyes, memories colliding like shards. The room blurred. He reached out, gripping air. The walls melted into wires, screens, endless code. The reality they'd all fought for? A ghost. Suddenly, the hospital dissolved. They were inside a cold laboratory, rows of blinking servers, humming endlessly. James, the one in cuffs, looked around, terror swallowed whole. The original stepped closer, lowering his voice. I erased the real world to hold on to what little sanity I had left. Whitish light flickered. Caroline's eyes flooded with tears. Human now, not programmed. James, forgive me, she whispered. Sobbing broke free in the crowd. The original James raised a trembling hand. And now, I'm losing even this. With a sudden jolt, the laboratory walls twisted violently. Screams bled into static. James's vision fractured. He blinked, heart slamming. And then, a shattering revelation crashed over everyone. From the shadows, a child stepped forward. A small boy, eyes deep and endless, staring through the layers of madness. He smiled, cold and clear. I'm him, the boy said. The seed, the real beginning. The crowd recoiled, whispers clawing into panic. James's chest tightened until he couldn't breathe. Who are you? He rasped. The boy's grin deepened. The part you can't erase. The truth they never wanted you to find. And then, with a snap, the boy vanished, leaving behind only a whisper in the air. You're all just echoes inside shadows. The room trembled. The nightmare wasn't ending. It was rewinding. And this time, the real game was just beginning. The room fell silent, the weight of what just happened pressing down like a crushing wave. James's chest tightened so hard, it felt like it would snap. His hands trembled, fingers curling into fists as he stared at the empty space where the boy had vanished, like a ghost that never really existed. Around him, faces blurred, shocked, scared, broken. The air buzzed with a tension so sharp, it cut through the thick silence. Then, from the shadows, the original James stepped forward again, calm but drained. His eyes searched the crowd, landing on the man in cuffs, James, the last echo. This, he said quietly, voice cracking, is all that's left of me. The pieces no one wanted to admit were real. James coughed, his body weak, spirit raw. So, what now? Who wins? Who loses? The original's gaze darkened. No one wins. Not when the truth is this fractured. What you face now is survival. Inside yourself, inside this maze of memories. The crowd held their breath as Caroline stepped forward. No longer a cold machine, but a woman torn by guilt. Her eyes met James's, soft with broken hope. We build from this, or we fall apart. The nightmare doesn't end because the story stops. It ends when you decide to fight for what's real. James's heart slammed. He swallowed hard, eyes burning with fire and pain. The weight inside him didn't lift, but a spark flickered. A fragile promise that maybe, just maybe, the darkness could be fought. The gray-haired woman gave a small nod, stepping back into the shadows. The cage will remain, but the cage can be cracked. Suddenly, the shattered glass twinkled under the cold light. Outside, sirens wailed faintly. A world still turning, still watching. James looked out at the city skyline. Cold, distant, endless. A labyrinth just like his mind. And then he whispered, voice barely there, "This isn't over, not by far." The original James's shadow faded. The echoes dissolved back into silence. But somewhere deep down, a new question burned hotter than ever. Who is really pulling the strings? The truth was still out there, waiting. The game was just beginning. Now, you need to subscribe to the channel right this second to catch every twist and secret coming your way. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support. Flood the comments below. Tell us your wildest theories, your shock, your heart, because your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it ends. Only true fans know how huge it is to keep this community alive. So hit subscribe, smash like, comment, and share now. Your next favorite story is just a click away.